خاموشی تحمل ضبط اور شکر خدا ان خسائل میں ہے بس زینب جواب فاطمہ اس سے بڑھ کر اور کیا صلوات محمد وآل محمد صلوات سر حسین جو زندان شام میں آیا سر حسین جو زندان شام میں آیا تو بڑھ کے بھائی کو ہمشیر نے سلام کیا وہ فور نالو شیون سے ایسا حشر اٹھا حرام بھی روتے تھے مولا کا سر بھی روتا تھا ملے یہ خواب کی تعبیر قید خانے میں بپا تھی مجلس شبیر قید خانے میں بپا تھی مجلس شبیر قید خانے میں سکینہ بولی سنو حال بے کساں بابا چلے گئے تھے مجھے چھوڑ کر کہاں بابا رہے غش میں عابد بیمار ناتواں بابا گلے میں توق ہے پاؤں میں بیڑیاں بابا گلے میں توق ہے پاؤں میں بیڑیاں بابا ستم گروں کو ہمارا خیال کوئی نہیں نبی کی آل کا پرسان حال کوئی نہیں نبی کی آل کا پرسان حال کوئی نہیں لگایا باپ کے سر کو گلے سے بیٹی نے رکے ہوئے تھے جو مدت سے شمر کے ڈر سے ارے وہ بین آج سکینہ کے لب پہ آئی گئے سنایا حال زبوں خوب اپنا رو رو کے سنایا حال रो रो के यजीदियत के सितम फाश कर गए बच्ची तड़प तड़प के असेरे में मर गए बच्चे तड़प तड़प के असेरे में मर गए बच्चे सरे हुसैन जो
मैं हमारे काबिल एहतराम नौजवान आलिम दीन जनाब मुज़म्मिल ज़ैदी साहब से दरख्वास्त करता हूँ कि मेंबर पे तशरीफ़ लाएँ और इमाम मज़लूम के फ़ज़ाइल और मसाइब बयान करें।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المنتجبين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين ولعن الله أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Continuing from the topic that we were discussing yesterday regarding piety, which is one of the criterias if we were to prepare ourselves for the reappearance and for the arrival of the Imam of our time. Please recite a salawat for his reappearance, inshallah. May Allah hasten his reappearance. As mentioned, that one of the criteria for the preparation of reappearance or for the arrival of Imam of the time is piety. And we discussed few characteristics of piety, what has been mentioned in some of the verses of Surah Ali Imran, the chapter of Imran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about you have to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to follow Prophet if you want to be entitled for Allah's mercy. Atiyullaha wa rasula la'allakum turhamun. And then we said that we defined different phases of obedience. We mentioned that just following wajibat, and as we mentioned yesterday that a lot of wajibat we don't even know, but just the apparent of namaz and fasting, some of these very apparent and very obvious wajibat, we feel like that we are following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are in obedience with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas there was a clear distinction that was mentioned that when we are talking about Atiyullaha wa rasula la'allakum turhamun, when we are talking about that ata'at, when we are talking about that subservience, we are saying that the subservience, the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be in every action of our lives. We cannot leave out certain part of our lives as something that we are following and obeying those who are the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas in some parts of our lives we are following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we are at home, when we are at our Hussainiya or religious center, when we are at our Imam Bargah, we are following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when it comes to our schools, when it comes to our work, we are following everything that is Allah is against, that Allah has prohibited on us. Some of the examples that were given were just our daily interaction with the opposite gender living in the Western society. Now I feel like one of the feedbacks that I received from my senior, who is also studying in Hausa, he mentioned that when we are talking about the oppression and when we are talking about being indifferent with the Islamic world, there are times when the kids or the youth over here cannot directly relate to whatever is happening in outside world. So oppression needs to be elaborated a little more. And I do agree with him, with the friend, that normally we do not, we tend to propose things, or tend to present things which a lot of us cannot directly relate to. Not saying that those things are not to be considered, but as mentioned, it should be a gradual step. It should be a gradual journey. We mentioned one of the criteria of piety, and the definition of piety in Islam is completely in contradiction with what has been taught as piety in Christianity. Where in Christianity you are supposed to stay indifferent about whatever is going on in your outside world, and in Islam it commands you to go after people who are committing sins, or you cannot stay indifferent with the people who are drowned in the ocean of sins. Now, how can this be related to us? What can we do in order to become pious, or in order to at least cover this base of piety? We cannot, of course, there are very little practical actions at this stage that we can take regarding the oppression that is being committed in the Muslim world. But what about the community that we have? The oppression that's being committed on the community, inside our community. What kind of oppression am I talking about? Isn't it not the oppression when you see your fellow brother, your Muslim brother, is being driven towards the sins, is being driven away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When he's involved in, God forbid, in some of the things, in some of the practices which are prohibited in Islam. For example, do we not know how many people are being indifferent about the Azadari and the Majalis and this school of thought? Is it not oppression on them that we stay indifferent about it? Is it not our responsibility to save our brother who is involved in, God forbid, drugs? Is it not our responsibility, and having that definition of taqwa, of piety in your mind, you cannot stay indifferent with those people, with your brothers who are not attached with the religion of Islam, who are not attached with the school of Ahl Bayt. And if we feel that this is the right source, this is the right place to be at, and for them to be driven away from it, or for them to be deviated from the right path, that's an oppression. They are committing oppression, or the society is committing oppression on them. What is our responsibility as someone who is trying to follow taqwa, as someone who is trying to fulfill the requirements of piety according to the definition that was mentioned yesterday? We cannot stay indifferent. We cannot say, what does that have to do with me? If my brother is involved in some of the practices that is not permissible in Islam, if my brother in the community is seeking some unlawful ways to get rid of depression that he might be facing, what is my responsibility as a community? What is my responsibility as a Muslim, as a Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib? Please recite a salawat. What is my responsibility? Do we see when our fellow brothers within our community are faced with problems, whatever genre of problem that might be, whatever kind of problem that might be, and if we are not being there for them, is it not oppression? Is it going to fall under taqwa? Taqwa again being one of the criteria, one of the requirements to be in Imam's camp. And we mentioned yesterday, if our lives are not revolving around what Imam wants from us, or if our lives are not revolving around on preparing ourselves for the arrival of our Imam, then this life is not worth anything. We have to ponder upon the purpose of our creation. The purpose of our creation cannot be just to get good degrees and get best of jobs and then get busy with making good for our own selves or for our families. If we are providing for our families, that's not something that you're doing something extraordinary. That's something that even animals do. What is the difference between us and animals? The animals they also provide for their family. They also look for food for their family. There has to be a reason why we have been named as the best of the creation, Ashraful Makhluqat. And Ashraful Makhluqat, being Ashraful Makhluqat, comes with responsibility, comes with accountability. And when we start fulfilling those responsibilities, that's when we understand that we are going in the right direction, that we are being Ashraful Makhluqat. Otherwise, there remains absolutely no difference if we do not accept those responsibilities, and if we do not fulfill those responsibilities that were bestowed upon us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, piety, again, there's a lot of focus on this. And there's a lot of focus because of the fact that it is one of the requirements to prepare ourselves for the arrival of the Imam of our time. Please recite the salawat to hasten his reappearance. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. There is a problem, and again, unless and until we are going to, and again, I'm addressing to the youth, and they can relate to these problems more than anyone else. Those who are in school, those who are going to college, and from the adults, as mentioned yesterday, I just seek their blessings and prayers. For those who are going to college and schools, you would see that the amount of people who are present in this particular city, good amount of them are missing from religious centers. There's a reason, and this is a major problem. I cannot stay indifferent. I know there is a code to hasten the reappearance of Imam. The code is what? 313, right? 313 is a code. What is my responsibility? Look, the reappearance of Imam is not based on, or it's not dependent upon the time and space. It's not like we have passed 5 years and then 45 years remain for Imam's arrival. It's not like that. Imam's reappearance is dependent upon events and the readiness of the followers. And if I know the secret code is 313, the 313 commanders, what am I doing to produce them? What am I doing to be one of them? Now, see the connection of taqwa, according to the definition of Islam, that you cannot stay indifferent. You cannot just work on self-purification and be indifferent about whatever is happening around you. You see your brothers, your fellow brothers who might be involved, or even if they are not involved, they do not have the love of Imam Hussein in their heart the way it should be. They do not have the pain of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein the way it should be. Don't you see this as an oppression, as an act of oppression on themselves? What kind of life this would be if we did not have the love and the pain of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? Again, what is your responsibility at this time? Not to be indifferent. Do something. Act. When we are talking about taqwa in Islam, it's not the state of heart. It's the action. It requires action. It requires movement. We have incidents that happen within our community. Let's not even go outside of this realm. Within our community, we've had few incidents that happened in the last month or so. Wasn't this a failure if we found out that one of our youth was involved in drugs? That's a failure for us, especially for the youth who are, with the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, attached to these institutions. If they were not able to save their brother, that's a failure on us. It's a failure on your part. You're going to be questioned about it. That when you could talk to someone, when you could save someone, why didn't you do it? And that's why when we look at the movement of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he said in his last will that إنما خرجت لطلب إصلاح في أمة جدي أريد أن أمر بالمعروف ونهي عن المنكر. That only and only I have rose to reform the ummah to reform the nation of my grandfather. And this is Imam Hussein's goal. When he put innama in front of it, innama in Arabic means only and only times 100. There is no word for innama in English. There's so much emphasis on only and only that there is nothing that can be included in this statement or in this objective. The goal, the objective of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein to rise against Yazid was so that he can reform the ummah, the nation of his grandfather. And then he continues that I want to do Amar bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. What is Amar bil Maruf? Inviting people towards the good and prohibiting them from doing bad. Stopping them from doing bad. Whether it's physical or whether it's through verbal or whether it's through within the state of your heart. This is the objective, and it does not require any age. You don't have to be certain amount. You don't have to study certain amount of books in order for you to do that. Start acting on things that you know. There are a lot of things that we know. Start acting on those things that you know. Start preaching those things that you know. Start stopping or prohibiting your brothers from the things that are not permissible that you know. You yourself stop doing those things that are not permissible upon you. These are the things that we know, right? Things that you know, you start doing them. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, what is he saying? Uridu an amar bil maruf wa nahy anil munkar. That I want to do amar bil maruf wa nahy anil munkar. If I, as a Husseini, not doing that in my practical life, what kind of allegiance have I made to Imam Hussein? And if I am not doing that for Imam Hussein, what am I going to be doing for Imam of the time, of the Hussein of the time? This is again preparing the groundwork. We have to prepare the groundwork for the arrival of Imam of our time. We cannot be indifferent about the wrongs that are happening around us. We cannot let our brothers drown in the oceans of sins. It is incumbent upon us to save them. Save yourself and then dive into the ocean so that you can save those who are getting drowned in sins. Again, addressing to the youth. This is one of the objectives of Abu Abdullah and the oppression that has been happening in the community, inside our community. Where is the youth? How many youth do we have in this city? And how many of them are literally connected with Abu Abdullah, with the Imam of our time? And if we are not concerned about it, then know this for sure, that we are not ready, and hence we deserve to live in this calamity, that we are living our lives without the Imam of our time. Don't look at this ghaiba, this occultation of Imam, this absence of Imam from our eyes. Don't look at that. Don't get used to of that. It was not supposed to be like this. And the people, the followers are the one who can do things, who can act upon the things that they are supposed to do to hasten the reappearance of the Imam. Please recite a salawat on the hastening of Imam of our time. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ajjal faraj. When we continue, there was a need, I felt that, and again I was advised by some friends, that there was a need to elaborate on this oppression thing. There was a need to elaborate on this ata'at thing, something that can be related. This is something that can be done. We have absolutely, the youth has absolutely no excuse. We don't have any excuse not to be performing these acts. For this, we don't have to go to Syria, we don't have to go to Yemen, we don't have to go to Palestine. This is the oppression that's happening right in front of you, where people are getting deviated, your own brothers are getting deviated or getting indulged in some of the acts which are not allowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an oppression in itself. And we have to start from ground up. Things that you can do, you must do, and you're going to be questioned about it. The ayah continues, and again, as we were saying, that these 2-3 ayahs from the chapter of Al Imran, they talk about the different characteristics and different traits of muttaqi people, or the pious people. We ended yesterday by saying that those who rush towards, who haste towards forgiveness, سارعوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة أرضها السماوات والأرض. The heavens that are made, those who haste towards maghfirah, those who haste towards forgiveness, asking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The heavens has been created, the heavens that is the size of this earth and the skies. And then it says, أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It has been created for muttaqi people, for the pious people. And then the ayah continues, the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defines who muttaqi are. Who are the pious people? He says that الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. And this is an extremely important point, an extremely important characteristic. Over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. We have made this, we have prepared this Jannah for the pious people. And who are the pious people? الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ. Those who do infaq. فِي سَرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. In their happiness and in their sad times, in their sorrowful times. Infaq is different from nifaq. They are worlds apart. Infaq is a quality of mu'min. Nifaq is a quality of a munafiq. Nifaq is hypocrisy. Infaq is something which is under discussion. The literal meaning of infaq, and again being one of the signs of the mu'mineen or the muttaqeen, what the literal translation in English word, in English vocabulary would be, infaq is those who spend in Allah's way, or who spend, who do charity. But infaq is much more bigger than that. It's much more deeper than that. Every infaq, every charity, or every infaq that you do is going to be called charity. But every charity that you do is not going to be infaq. Charity is giving or doing something in Allah's way, giving something in Allah's way. There are millions of dollars or billions of dollars that are being spent or that are being wasted, I would say, according to Quran, that are being wasted on welfare system over here. And especially the immigrants and those who do not know the reality of how the welfare system works, they praise this system so much that, oh, they give you this when you're unemployed, or you get food stamps, or you get this and you get that. And this is the blessing of living in this country or living in Western democracies or in the welfare states. Here's a question. If I come and buy you a brand new car and I give you for free, would you like it? Asking you, you were looking at me, asking you, would you like it? You like it, right? Now, if I tell you that you're getting this car for free, it's a brand new car, your favorite car, but you get to find out that I robbed my neighbor, I killed his wife, I killed his children, and I killed the head of the household so that I can take all the money from them so that I can give you this brand new car. Would you still like it? No. Now apply this theory to these welfare systems. Any charity, any spending for good deeds, for good cause, if it's being done without having Allah involved in them, it is going to be thrown right back at them on their faces. And this is not me, this is Quran saying. What does Quran say? Please recite a salawat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ هَلْ نُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِالْأَخْسَرِينَ عَمَالًا. Shall we inform you? قُلْ هَلْ نُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِالْأَخْسَرِينَ عَمَالًا. Shall we inform you of the greatest losers in their deeds? Who is the greatest loser in their deeds? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, الَّذِينَ ضَلَّ سَعْيَهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. They are those whose labor is lost in this world's life. All the hard work that they did, it has been lost, it has been thrown back right on their faces. And they think that they are very well versed in their handwork or in their artwork. These are the millions and billions of dollars that are being spent in charity, but this is not going to be called infaq. This is regarding the non-believers. All right? The non-believers, all the good deeds that they're doing, if they're not doing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they're doing it for the sake of non-divine causes, it's not going to do them any good, and we should not look at them or these traits as something which is praiseworthy. Because it's not being done. Anything that's not being done for the sake of Allah, for the sake of divine power, it is nothing but just your fulfilling your carnal desires. At the end of the day, you do have this fitrah, you do have this conscience that keeps talking to you that, okay, all the injustices that you're doing, let's just do something so that I feel better and people start feeling, or people start looking at me in a better way. That's regarding non-believers. What about the believers? Every charity that you do, every money that you spend in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that going to be called infaq? Let's look at the situation. There is a believer who comes in front of you and who is hungry, dying out of hunger. Right? You have money, but you end up buying him clothes. Have you done infaq? Spending in Allah's way? This is not going to be called infaq. You bought clothes for him out of good deed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this person needed what? Food. The necessity was food. And since you did not fulfill the necessity, since you did not fill the void, you did not, the money that was spent to a point that it was going to be considered haram. This money that you spent, it is going to be considered haram because you could have fulfilled. And it is wajib upon you to fulfill the needs of your brothers, if you can. You could give him food. You could give him the thing which he needed, which he was in need of. But you ended up spending money on something that he did not even need. Even though it was for his own sake. Infaq, which is defined as the characteristic of a muttaqi person, of a pious person, is something that you're spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fill the void, to fill the need, whether it is on individual basis or whether it is on societal level, whether it is for your society or whether it is to take care of your own needs. Infaq is spending in Allah's way to fill the void, to fill the gap. الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. You are those who are muttaqi, for those that heavens has been prepared. It's for those who do infaq in their happy times, not only in their happy times, even when you do not have anything or much to offer. You try your level best to fulfill the need of your believer or of your brother. This is what you call infaq. Now apply that in your society. Again, talking to the youth. You see there is a problem that youth is missing from the community. The youth is missing from religious centers. There's a void. There's a void. They are not getting attracted towards their religion. We do know, we have this firm belief that religion has provided with all the answers. And if I come over here and I start talking about things which are not fulfilling their needs, there is going to be a question on my delivery. There is going to be a question on my speech. I am not doing infaq in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Infaq is something which is needed for the society or for an individual. If my society, if my community needs spirituality, and I keep giving them lessons regarding, for example, the philosophy of Islam, whereas that is not needed. I'm not saying it applies over here. Like my personal observation is, Islamic philosophy applies the most over here. But just to give you an example, if the community needs spirituality and I keep hammering them with philosophy, I might get reward for trying. But I'm not doing infaq, which is one of the characteristics of muttaqi people, of pious people. If the community where we see that they are not being answered, their questions are not being answered regarding humanities, regarding philosophy, they have been taught and indoctrinated with the likes of Kant, Hegel and Hume, the Western philosophers who question the existence of God. And if I'm not providing them with the Islamic philosophy of Mullah Sadra, the likes of Mullah Sadra, the likes of Syed Mutari, then I'm not doing infaq. I'm not covering that base, because of which the youth keeps turning away. Please recite a salawat. Not only with your intellect, but also with your money. Be very careful in how and where you are spending money in Allah's way. Be very careful about that. You have to think, because everything that belongs to you or that you think is your possession does not belong to you. Your wealth does not belong to you. Your life does not belong to you. Your wealth and your life belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one who gave you. So you do not have any right to spend the way you want to. You have to spend it the way where Allah deems fit. And for that, you would have to understand what Allah wants. You just cannot say that I will try my level best with best of intentions. No. A believer, it is quoted it has been narrated, a believer is smart, is intelligent. A mu'min is intelligent. You have to understand your deen. You have to understand the divine commands and divine will in order for you to be able to specify what your responsibility is in this movement. Infaq, again, it's different from charity. Every infaq is charity, and every charity is not infaq. Infaq is when you are fulfilling the needs, when you are filling the void, when you're filling the gap. The ayah continues, it says, الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ, those who, we have this phrase in Urdu as well, and in Farsi and in Arabic, but I don't think we have this. I think we do have this in English as well. That they sip their anger. They drink their anger. It's not very commonly used. You say you sip your anger, I think. But basically, you control your anger. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ. Again, defining the qualities of muttaqi people. الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ. They sip, the literal meaning is they sip away their anger. Now, what is the definition of sipping away your anger? Does that mean that if somebody comes and slaps on my face, God forbid, am I supposed to stay silent about that? If somebody comes and take away my rights, am I supposed to sip my anger? If somebody comes and attacks my family, am I supposed to just stay calm? If somebody comes and shoots at my brother's house 24 times while endangering his life and the life of his family, am I supposed to stay calm about it? وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ. Quran is saying, sip away your anger. When you look in the depth of it, it says, وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ. You're supposed to sip away your anger, but it does not say you forget about it. You're not supposed to act while you're angry. You're supposed to sip away your anger. Don't forget about it. Keep the problem in your mind, and then react with intellect, with basira, with insight, according to Islam. Example, Amirul Mu'mineen is sitting. Please recite the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajal farajah. Amirul Mu'mineen is sitting on the chest of the enemy of Islam when he spat on Amirul Mu'mineen's face. What does Amirul Mu'mineen do at that time? He does Kazamin al-Ghaiza. He stood up and started walking. Took some steps, came back. Did he forgive him? Did he not kill him? Kazamin al-Ghaiza, that you are not going to react out of anger. A muttaqi person will not react out of anger. It does not mean that he is not going to get angry. He is not going to act upon the anger. He is going to act according to divine will. He is going to act based on his insight, Islamic insight. He is going to act with basira. Kazamin al-Ghaiza. He spat on Amir al-Mu'mineen's face. Imam took some steps, came back, thought about it, thought that what is the objective, and then still killed him, sent him to hellfire. Kazamin al-Ghaiza. You think about the different sects of Islam. You look at the reaction on situations, and then you look at the reaction that is coming from the leadership and from the marjayyat. I mean, these are very ordinary servants of Imam of our time, our Marajeh, and look at their insight. Whenever there are attacks on the dignity of Prophet, what do Sunnis do? And again, with all due respect to our Sunni brothers or other sects of Islam, one of the most common reaction that you would see, they would start burning down the streets of, Pakistan, if they're living in a Muslim country, start destroying things because their actions or the reaction is out of anger. What did our Marja do when first time this happened? Thought about it, came from the source of Islam and issued a fatwa against the accursed Salman Rushdie. It was with insight. You act upon your anger, you sip away your anger, and then you act upon it. And then you will see the blessings. You will see the blessings. Kazimin al-Ghaiza, again, another sign of moment. If your fellow brother, if your believer has committed something, Kazimin al-Ghaiza, you sip away your anger. Wal-afina an-nas, you forgive them. Kazimin al-Ghaiza, one more point about that. Those, again, just to back up the claim that Kazimin al-Ghaiza does not mean that you completely forget about the issue. Kazimin al-Ghaiza does not necessarily mean that you do not think about the issue or do not react about the issue. We have a verse in the Quran, Ashidda'u alal kufar ruhma bainahum. You should be very strict or rigid with the kuffar. And again, talking about kuffar harbi. The kuffar harbi, those who attack you, when you're defending yourself. You should be strict towards them. And ruhma bainahum. You should have mercy amongst your own self. You should have mercy with your fellow brother, with your fellow believer. Not only that, those, even non-believers, who are not your enemies, who have not attacked you, supposed to have love. We have a famous statement from Amirul Mu'mineen that the people are either your brothers in faith or equal in humanity. Rahma bainahum. But again, don't forget the part Ashidda'u alal kuffar. That I'm not going to sit silent if somebody was to come and attack my religion. I'm not going to just step away my anger without having reaction based on my insight, based on the Islamic insight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not created anything which is bad. Everything that has been created, because He's all good, everything that He has created is good. It's how we channelize that. Anger is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if it's being channelized in the right way. If it's not channelized in the right way, it burns your iman, it burns your faith like fire burns the wood in jungle. So anger is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It helps you defend your family, it helps you defend your religion. It helps you defend those things that are near and dear to you. Wal-afina an-nas, that you are supposed to be forgiving towards your brothers. If someone has committed a mistake, if someone has trampled over your rights, and if they are seeking forgiveness, afina an-nas, forgive them. Have this characteristic in you. Have this trait in you. These are the signs of pious people. People who are going to be serving in Imam's camp. It's not something that I'm telling you that you guys don't know. For the most part, we know these things. What is stopping us? What is stopping us from acting And that is the insistence upon disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You make mistake, you rush towards astaghfar, you rush towards maghfirah, you rush towards forgiveness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran that I will forgive you. Who else will forgive you for your sins than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But it comes with conditions. That so that you don't go back to your old ways. You don't insist. Once you have decided, once you have found out that whatever you are doing is something that has not been permitted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why insist on that? Once you break away from those sins, once you break away from those traits and those practices, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ghafarun. He's certainly the most merciful, the most forgiving. You have made mistake, no problem. But insisting upon it, no problem, in a way that when you do astaghfar, I don't mean to say that no problem, you keep committing mistake. When you commit mistake, when you commit sin, you repent. You repent with a firm resolution that I'm never going to go back to those old ways. And what is it? Look, we have again this ayah in Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about you have the biggest enemy or shaitan, or the shaitan, people who have those characteristics of shaitan. You will have this in your life, whether you're living in East or West. You will be surrounded with those people who will be whispering satanic intuitions in your ears. The best shield, the best weapon against those intuitions, and again this is quoting from Quran, the best weapon that you have against Satan is remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remembrance of the representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more you're going to think about, look, it's all about what you are thinking, what's inside your mind, because that will entail your actions. If I am saying that I am going to be the soldier of my Imam when he comes, when he reappears, and I am not thinking about him right now, it is not like somewhat of a switch that you would turn on and off. It has to be penetrated in your system. The remembrance of the Imam of our time has to be penetrated in your heart, which is then going to dictate your actions. The more you will think, again, it's not easy on day one. You're not going to be thinking about Imam 24/7 starting from tomorrow. May Allah give you that much capacity or competency. But it's a gradual process. You have to start. We have to start from somewhere before it's too late. Those who have not penetrated the remembrance of Imam in their minds and in their hearts, know for sure they're not going to be the ones who would be ready when Imam makes the call. We have the examples of Kufis mentioned yesterday, that there, when Abu Abdullah met someone on his way to Kufa, he asked the conditions of Kufa, and he was responded by this one very famous saying. He said, somebody said that their hearts are with you, but their swords are against you. Why? Because Imam Hussein had not penetrated in their system. The Imamat had not penetrated in their hearts. Just like, if you apply this in your daily life, you will see that if I am talking to you, if we are having one-on-one conversation, and say I am busy on my phone, I am playing on my phone while you are having a conversation with me, would I be able to respond to you as effectively had I given you my 100% concentration? No. I won't be able to, because my mind is divided, my thoughts are divided. Similarly, if my thoughts are divided, when the Imam is going to make a call, When he would want to summon me in front of him, would I be able to go right away if my minds are always distracted with different things? Remembrance of Imam, remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best weapon that you can have against the satanic forces. There are going to be a lot of distractions, especially living over here. I understand that. I grew up over here. I do understand what kind of distractions we have in our lives. When we are going to high school, when we are going to college, when we are going to university. It's understandable. But know this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising you that the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best weapon that you will have against the satanic forces. Use that. It's going to start off with just the exercise of with the workout of your tongue. But the more you start thinking about it, the more those zikr, the more of those holy words are going to start penetrating in your heart. Practical action. Be proud. Know this, that you are going to be singled out. Know this, that you are not the ones. This is not the only generation. This has been the case with the Shias of Amirul Mu'mineen since last 14 centuries. But those Shias were proud of their identity that we mentioned yesterday. What is that identity? The identity is the wilayat, is being the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Salawatullah alayhi. Brothers, know these tough times that we are living in. And this was foretold by the infallible. That during the last times, just before the Zahur, just before the reappearance of the Imam of our time, just before that, the seditions are going to be so much that people will wake up, will leave their houses with Iman, and when they would come back, they would be in such a state where they would not have any faith whatsoever. The distractions are going to be there. But how bad it's going to be if we end up being like Kufis, who kept calling their Imam to come and fill their lives with Iman. But when Imam did come, not only they did not support Imam, but rather drew their swords against Imam. Imam kept reminding them that, weren't you the ones who invited me? Were you not the ones who sent me letters to invite me and have me come over here? Why is it that you are doing this to me? Have I usurped your rights? Have I trampled over your rights? Have I committed any oppression? And they all said that, no, you did not. But because of the fact that their attachments with this world, because the lack of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were not able to aid their Imam. How bad it's going to be that if this curse of occultation, of this state that we are in, that we are not able to see our Imam, how bad it's going to be that if it keeps prolonging and we die from this world, we depart this world without having to see our Imam even for once. How bad it's going to be that when we die, we don't return when the Imam reappears. How bad it's going to be that when Imam comes, God forbid, we end up being in the Yazidi camp. The tragedy of Karbala, the tragedy of what Ahl Bayt went through. We are in the days when people embark on this journey of love towards Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. He's truly Misbah al-Huda. There is a reason why he has been given this title. One of the main reasons is his love lights the heart of Mu'mineen. His love, his death has left a scar
in the hearts of mu'mini that will never be cool off. And why not? It was his holy body that was trampled upon. Why not that while he was taking his last few breath, just to make sure that he was alive or not, the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this call that if you want to see whether or not he is alive or not, just start attacking his tents, just start attacking the tents of Al-Bayt. If he's still alive, he will still wake, he'll still rise. To which Imam made this request, and how ghareeb and how poor Imam was during his last breath, that he asked the enemies of Allah to wait for the attacks, not to attack the tents as long as he is alive. Look at the request of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. He knew what his family is going to go through, but his request was not to let that happen as long as he was alive. And sure enough, after his head was put on the spear, after that spear was raised, and after that spear was dragged in the streets of Kufa and Karbala and Sham, the family, the noble ladies of Al-Bayt, the granddaughters of Prophet, the daughters of Amir al-Mu'minin Hazrat Zahra, were taken as prisoners. They were dragged from street to street, from city to city, as they stay in a state of being the prisoners. And there was no one who could come for their aid. What had got to the Muslim community at that time, that the daughters of Amir al-Mu'minin was being stoned, she was being tortured, she was being hit with the spears. May Allah's wrath, may Allah's infinite wrath be upon the killers of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein.
या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न तन्हा हो, या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न तन्हा हो, या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न तन्हा हो, या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न तन्हा हो, या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न तन्हा हो, पाबंद ना हो आए, है पाबंद ना हो आहे, रोने पे न पहरा हो, या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न तन्हा हो, या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न, या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न तन्हा हो, या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न तन्हा हो, पाबंद ना हो आहे, है पाबंद ना हो आहे, रोने पे न पहरा हो, या रब कोई मासूमा जिंदा में न तन्हा हो, या रब कोई मासूमा थी जिसको नींद आती شبیر کے سینے پر تھی جس کو نیند آتی شبیر کے سینے پر زندہ در زندہ ہے زندہ در زندہ جس کے لیے قضا ہو یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو زندانوں سے آتی تھی آواز سسکنے کی زندانوں سے آتی تھی آواز سسکنے کی جیسے کہ سکینہ کو ہے جیسے کہ سکینہ کو ہر زندان رو رہا ہو رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ ٹکرائے نہ وہ کیوں کر زندہ کی دیواروں سے ٹکرائے نہ وہ کیوں کر زندہ کی دیواروں سے بھائی سے اور پھوپھی سے ہے بھائی سے اور پھوپھی سے جس کو جدا کیا ہو یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو پابند نہ ہو آئے ہائے پابند نہ ہو آئے رونے پہ نہ پہرا ہو یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا حسین
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد متوجہ زیارت